You finally have nothing you need to do. No meeting in 10 minutes, no deadline tonight. Nobody is waiting for an answer. For once, you could sit down, watch something, go outside, take a nap, or simply do nothing. And somehow, doing nothing feels terrible. You check your phone, put it down. Remember something you could clean. Open your email even though you already checked it. Think about tomorrow. Think about everything you have not finished, everything you could be improving. Your body has stopped working. Your mind has not. And after a few minutes, a strange feeling begins to appear. Guilt. Nothing is wrong. Nobody is accusing you of anything. Yet resting feels suspiciously similar to doing something you should not be doing. Why? It is easy to conclude that you are simply bad at relaxing. Maybe you are too ambitious, too anxious, too accustomed to being busy. Sometimes that is part of it, but that explanation leaves something out. For some people, productivity stops being merely something they do. It becomes evidence. Evidence that they are responsible, disciplined, useful, moving forward, making something of themselves, not wasting their potential. And when doing things provides that reassurance, stopping removes it. Suddenly, there is nothing to point toward. No finished task, no crossed-off list, no visible progress, no proof that today counted. When productivity becomes proof that you matter, rest can feel like temporarily disappearing. You probably do not consciously think, "My value depends on how productive I am." Beliefs like that are rarely so polite as to introduce themselves. Instead, they sound like this: "I should be doing something. I haven't earned this yet. I'll relax when I finish one more thing. I wasted the whole afternoon." Notice the language. You did not spend the afternoon resting. You wasted it. You are not simply tired. You have not earned the right to stop. Somewhere along the way, rest stopped being a physical state and became a moral question. And this changes the way leisure feels. Research has found that people who view leisure as wasteful tend to enjoy it less. Experimental work has even shown that encouraging people to see leisure as unproductive can reduce their enjoyment of the leisure activity itself. Which means guilt does not merely arrive after you rest. It can follow you into the rest and prevent it from becoming rest at all. You sit on the couch, but some part of you remains standing. Your hands are still. Your mind is still at work. This is why leaving work and psychologically leaving work are not the same thing. You can close the laptop and continue working in imagination. You can lie in bed calculating tomorrow. You can go on vacation and spend half the trip thinking about everything waiting when you return. You can leave the office while the office remains inside you. Psychologists call the ability to mentally disengage from work psychological detachment. Research has consistently connected better detachment during non-work time with better recovery and well-being. But there is another layer. Because sometimes busyness is not only about achievement. Sometimes busyness is easier than stillness. A full schedule gives attention somewhere to go. There is always another email, another task, another problem, another thing that can be improved. Activity creates structure, and structure can feel safe. Then everything becomes quiet, and suddenly there is space. Space to notice that you are lonely. Space to wonder whether you actually like the life you are working so hard to maintain. Space for uncertainty about the future. Space for disappointment. Space for questions that cannot be crossed off a list. So the mind does something clever. It finds another task. This does not mean every busy person is secretly escaping their emotions. Sometimes work is enjoyable. Sometimes life is genuinely demanding. Financial pressure, caregiving, school, health, and responsibility can make rest difficult for completely practical reasons. But if you have enough time to stop and still cannot give yourself permission to stop, the problem may no longer be the available time. It may be what stopping appears to mean. Maybe responsibility was praised more than play. Maybe achievement became one of the most reliable ways to receive approval. Maybe being needed made you feel secure. Maybe you simply absorbed the idea that a worthwhile person should always be improving something. You may never have deliberately chosen that rule. You may have simply lived inside it long enough that it began to sound like your own voice. Eventually, nobody needs to stand over you demanding productivity. You carry the supervisor with you, and the supervisor never clocks out. That is when rest becomes exhausting. You work until you are tired. You finally stop. Stopping produces guilt. Guilt prevents you from recovering. So you return to work still tired. Then you look at your exhaustion and think the problem must be that you are not disciplined enough, so you push harder. Eventually, you reach a strange place. Too exhausted to work well, too guilty to rest well. And both sides of the cycle are controlled by the same question. Have I done enough to deserve to feel okay? Maybe that is the question worth challenging. Not, how can I become better at relaxing? But, why do I believe rest needs to be earned? Because we often treat rest as though it must justify itself. We say sleep improves performance, walks improve creativity, vacations prevent burnout, breaks make you more productive. All of that may be useful, but notice what we are still doing. We are defending rest by proving that it eventually creates more work. Rest is allowed because productivity will receive a return on the investment. Even recovery has been forced to submit a resume. But perhaps rest does not always need to secretly be productivity in disguise. Maybe a quiet afternoon can matter even if tomorrow receives nothing from it. You listen to music. You walk somewhere without counting the steps. You read something that will never improve your career. You talk to someone without networking. You watch the sky change. Nothing came from it, and maybe nothing needed to. Because a life cannot consist entirely of moments whose value exists somewhere in the future. If every hour matters only because of what it produces next, you can spend your entire life preparing to live. This is not an argument against ambition. Ambition can build extraordinary things. The problem begins when ambition becomes the condition under which you are permitted to feel at peace. You can care deeply about your work without asking your work to prove that you deserve your place in the world. You can be disciplined without treating exhaustion as evidence of virtue. You can want more from yourself without making the present version of yourself wait outside until the future one arrives. So the next time you sit down and guilt appears, try not to immediately obey it. Listen to what it says. You should be doing something. Why? You are falling behind. Behind whom? You are wasting time. What would make the time count? You have not done enough. Enough for what? You do not need to win an argument with the thought. Just expose the rule underneath it. Because guilt is not always evidence that you are violating your values. Sometimes guilt appears because you are violating an expectation you absorbed so deeply that you forgot it was an expectation. And perhaps the goal is not to make guilt disappear before you rest. That would simply create another condition. I am allowed to rest once I feel completely comfortable resting. No. At first, stopping may still feel wrong. An unfamiliar state can feel uncomfortable without being dangerous. You can feel guilty and remain seated. You can notice the urge to become useful and let it pass. You can leave 1 hour unoptimized. You can discover, slowly, that nothing terrible happens when you stop proving yourself for a moment. That you can be unavailable without becoming irresponsible. That you can spend time without turning it into an investment. That you can exist without continuously presenting evidence of your usefulness. Because usefulness is something you can offer. It is not the price of being human. There will always be another email, another goal, another room that could be cleaner, another skill you could learn, another version of yourself you could be working toward. If you wait until there is nothing left to improve before you allow yourself to rest, Rest will remain permanently one task away. So perhaps the guilt you feel when you stop is not proof that you should get back to work. Perhaps it is the discomfort of discovering that you have spent a long time confusing doing something valuable with being valuable. Those are not the same thing. Rest is not the prize waiting at the end of usefulness, and exhaustion is not the receipt proving you paid for it. Sometimes closing the laptop is not giving up. Sometimes an afternoon produces nothing because an afternoon was never supposed to be a factory. Sometimes the hardest thing a productive person can learn is that life does not need to justify every minute of itself. You are allowed to be here when nothing is being produced. And perhaps real rest begins when you finally stop asking what it is for.